And we're getting a closer look at the race for 2020. Joining us is ABC News White House correspondent MaryAlice Parks, and from Washington, NPR White House correspondent and ABC News contributor Asma Khalid. Thank you both for being with us. Asma, I want to start with you. The candidate surrogates are out in full force these days for Kamala Harris. We just saw her with former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney by her side. Former President Obama set to make his way through the Midwest for her. On the Republican side, Donald Trump teaming up with Georgia's Governor Brian Kemp. Do appearances like these have any impact on voters?
Well, I will say, I don't think endorsements are a one-size-fits-all approach. But of all the endorsements you mentioned, the one that is the most interesting is former Congresswoman Liz Cheney. She appeared with Vice President Harris this week in Wisconsin at a site known as the birthplace of the Republican Party. And really what she creates is this permission structure for other somewhat skeptical Republicans to come out and possibly endorse Harris. She basically, her central message is that this is country over party. She tried to focus on the events of January 6th, and that's what Democrats want. They want this election to be a referendum on Donald Trump, his character, and his values, rather than a referendum on, say, the Biden administration's policies and what the last 4 years have been.
And MaryAlice, to you now, we saw the vice presidential candidates face off in that debate. You've been out on the campaign trail since then. What's been the reaction on the road, and do these VP debates really move the needle at all?
Yeah, I doubt they moved the needle. Look, the Trump-Harris debate barely moved the needle. I was in the room during the vice presidential debate, and I do think that Vance probably helped stop some of the bleeding that they had with female voters. Before the debate, Democrats had told me that they felt like Vance was basically handing them female voters with his comments, making fun of women without children. In the debate room, he came across so much more relatable, empathetic, even collegial. We saw this very different side of Vance that I do think helped him out, even if he did punt on some Republican issues around abortion, childcare, gun safety. I'll tell you, on the road, I have been struck by the grassroots energy at Harris's events. Her events haven't been huge, but you can't fake that grassroots energy. Homemade T-shirts, homemade signs. That's something Obama had. That's something Trump had. It's something that Harris's team feels really good about. They also like the fact that her events have been more diverse, frankly, more white, rural, and suburban voters in their crowds. Guys.
Interesting points, MaryAlice. And Asma, I want to bring you back in because we are in that October surprise territory, that being a news event just weeks before the election that can upend a presidential race. I'm sure we can all think of some. Anything on your radar?
Well, I just want to say this campaign season, we've already seen 2 assassination attempts and a turnover change at the top of the Democratic ticket. So maybe our senses are somewhat dull to surprise, but there are 2 things on the horizon that I think are unpredictable unknowns. And both of them, I will say, are out of the control of either candidate, but do pose a risk to someone like VP Harris, who's a sitting vice president. And that is a potential wider war in the Middle East, could be key in a state like Michigan, which has a large Arab American population. And then, of course, the impact of Hurricane Helene. We are already seeing how that's being politicized on the campaign trail. Donald Trump making some false claims about President Biden's initial response there. We know the impact has just been absolutely devastating in some key battleground states like North Carolina and Georgia. And that's why we're seeing both candidates visiting those states.